Good morning, everyone. Welcome to One Park Luxury Condominiums Roundtable Series, The Road to Your Dream Home. This is episode 3, Home Closings During COVID-19. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this morning, and I hope that we find you safe and healthy during this crazy, unprecedented time. We have a wonderful panel arranged for you. We'll start with the introducchions and we'll take it from there. So my name is Gemma Giantomasi. I am an attorney at Chiesa, Shahinian and Giantomasi. We are a real estate or a full practice law firm in West Orange, New Jersey. I'm a member in the firm's real estate development and land use group. I represent purchasers, sellers, developers, and lenders in all types of real estate transactions. Specifically with a focus on real estate acquisitions and sales, and with a specialty in condominium development and creation. I have the honor of representing the seller of the One Park condominiums in their end sales of their condominium units. Next, we have Tina Hu. Tina, can you say a few words about yourself this morning?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hope you and your loved ones are safe and sound. My name's Tina Hu. I'm an associate attorney at Schwartz Levine, and we're a real estate transaction firm. So I frequently represent purchasers and sellers in their purchase and sale of residential properties, which include condos, co-ops, and multifamily housing. Our firm also represents major lending institutions in their closings of mortgages.
Great, thank you, Tina. Next up, we have Marc Brenner.
Hey, my name is Marc Brenner. Thank you for having me. Just a little about myself. I'm a broker and partner with Nest Seekers, New Jersey. I've been doing real estate for 19 years. I'm a leader of the Nest Seekers, New Jersey New Development Division and sales director at One Park Condominiums.
Thank you, Marc.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we have Taryn Byron.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taryn Byron. I am also a broker at Nest Seekers and a leader of the New Jersey New Development Division alongside my counterpart, Marc, and also sales director at One Park Condos.
Thank you, Taryn. So I'd just like to take a moment again to thank the sponsor of this webinar, One Park Luxury Condominiums. One Park is a premier luxury condominium development located in Bergen County, Cliffside Park. It offers 14 stories with 204 upscale units featuring expansive views of the New York City skyline and the Hudson River. So we'll begin the substantive part of our presentation now. Please note at the end, we will have some time for questions and answers. So if you submit those questions and answers in the space provided, we will be sure to get back to you either during the session or after if necessary. So COVID-19, it's like I said earlier, it's an unprecedented time. Everyone is trying their best to keep safe, sane, healthy, and at the same time, try to keep some normalcy in their lives. One of those aspects of normalcy is the natural purchase and sale of homes. And during COVID, there are definitely some specific challenges, but thanks to great brokers and great title companies, great attorneys, and dedicated and committed lenders, we've been able to continue closing at One Park and generally throughout the state. So today's presentation will focus on a general overview of the real estate process in New Jersey, a real estate attorney's role in the home buying process, and how COVID-19 is impacting that transaction process. So we're going to start the morning with Marc and Taryn giving us a general overview of the home closing process. So Marc and Taryn, do you want to kick us off with what the home purchase process is like in New Jersey?
Sure. So home purchase process, meaning like when a purchaser first comes over to One Park or once you're in contract?
Let's start at the top. So once you decide, so someone will decide where they want to live and
Yep.
determine what they can afford. And if One Park is where they find themselves,
And of course, we know they're going to find themselves at One Park.
obviously.
So once they do find themselves at One Park, what happens is we, in the beginning, once you find the home that you like, it goes through a negotiating process. And once that negotiating process takes place, then it'll go into a contract. Now, the difference in New Jersey than from other states and New York is once you sign this contract, it's not a binding contract. It'll go into an attorney review phase. And I'll let you guys speak to that, but just going through it. And then once you go through the attorney review phase, then you do your home inspection, have your appraisal, and work out the details from closing from there.
Okay. So one of the main steps in the closing process is, to see the home or the condominium that you're going to be purchasing. How, Taryn, are you handling that during this COVID era?
So at One Park, we have taken extreme steps to make the process pretty seamless for a buyer. So when you are initially starting out, we have virtual tours, videos, and photos of homes in addition to floor plans. So you can really take your time and dive in deep to what you're getting yourself into at One Park. We have virtual tours of our amenity spaces. All of these were done by a great company called Walk This House, and it's a technology called Matterport. So you can actually walk around a home almost like a 3D model, and it's kind of like an augmented reality setup there. So it's like you're in an actual unit at One Park. From there, if you decide that you want to know more, we are still offering in-person tours. So to schedule an in-person tour, you go online to our website, oneparkcondosnj.com, and you can click on a Calendly link and set up a specific time and day where one of our very professional salespeople will meet you at the building. We do have masks and gloves and hand sanitizer all on site. And you'll be in communication with that salesperson before you get to the building to really pick out which units work best for you and your budget. And then we'll open the unit for you, have the lights on, so that this way it's a very contactless procedure, but also has that really great human interaction that I feel like we're all missing right now.
That's great. That's wonderful. As we get to the end of the process, once you've entered into contract, which Tina and I will talk about in a moment, and you're approaching closing, there are a lot of other in-person aspects of the overall real estate transaction. One of those is, in order to get the loan to close on the deal, is our lender appraisals. Can you speak, Mark or Taryn, as to how appraisals are getting done during this time?
Sure. So it's right now a buyer does not have to show up for the appraisal process. As Taryn mentioned, we have gloves, hand sanitizer, mask in the front, and the appraiser will come into the building. The lights will be on in the unit. The door will be open in the unit, and they could go about, what they do in the appraisal process.
So appraisals are still coming out to the physical building. Has there been any switch to virtual appraisals?
I think go ahead. Were you going to say something, Taryn?
Yeah, in a few instances, we've had appraisers that have been able to work directly off of floor plans because we are a new development and all of our finishes are consistent throughout the building and everything is brand new. They know what they're getting. Plus, we also have the great Matterport tours, so they can actually do a virtual tour of the unit without ever having to step foot at the building. On the flip side, home inspectors are still coming to the building to do physical inspections. And what we found with home inspectors is that many of the home inspectors come by themselves and are actually doing FaceTime inspections with the buyer and walking the buyer through the unit on FaceTime. So no one has to leave. And essentially, you could purchase a unit at one park and never visit the building until the day you move in.
It's really amazing how different industries have adapted to this in this very short period of time, to all the new ways of life in our current stage. So now you've done your pre-closing inspection with either FaceTime or relying on your inspector's report. Your appraisal is done, your loan has been approved, you're ready to close. Tina and I will talk about what the closing process looks like now in a bit, but how about moving in and moving out, Taryn? How is that occurring?
Well, move-ins, we have a very also streamlined process. We have an on-site property manager at One Park, Christian, who is absolutely wonderful to deal with and can work through everything and get your mover set up. We have an entire move-in package, and it's also contactless. One of the great things about One Park also is that we have a private freight elevator. So your movers and all of your furniture goes into a separate elevator that's sanitized before and after you move in. So your stuff is not exposed to anyone other than your movers. And it's really a very seamless process. We have had several people move into the building during the COVID pandemic and have had zero issues throughout this process.
That's great news. So next, Tina and I will chat a little bit about the real estate attorney's role in the home buying process and some specific issues that have come up due to COVID-19. So Tina, do you want to start us off with discussing the real estate attorney's role in New Jersey from the buyer's perspective?
Sure. So in general, your real estate attorney is there to protect your rights and reduce or minimize your risk. As home buying, buying a real estate is considered a relatively big investment, and there are definitely risks involved. So you should probably have an attorney from the very beginning, pretty much when you start working with an agent. And your agent usually can recommend a few attorneys who they've worked with well before and had smooth transactions. So once the initial contract is signed by both parties, your attorney will start what we call the attorney review. And as Mark mentioned earlier, the initial contract is not a binding contract. It basically serves like as the equivalent of a deal sheet in New York. So once the attorney review starts, both attorneys would actually either modify or add terms to protect their respective clients. And the attorney review period usually is 3 business days, and in this day and age, we could make it that longer, maybe 7 days, but usually the turnaround is not that long. And during this period, either party could cancel the contract for any reason or for no reason at all without any penalty. So your contract is considered binding when the attorney review period is concluded, and then you are considered under contract. And also in the later process, if you're doing inspection, the attorneys will be called upon to negotiate what repair seller is willing to make, or instead of giving a credit. And then your attorney will order title searches and review the title report to make sure that title is clear, there's no judgment or liens that encumber the property, and title issues must be cleared before for your lender as well. And your attorney would also coordinate with your lender to make sure that everything they need is there to approve your loan and also clear you to close. Last but not least, your attorney will also get all the closing documents ready and instruct you how much personal funds are needed to ensure the final closing is smooth. So that's basically an overview of what role your attorney is playing in every stage of the buying process.
Great. And from the seller's perspective, I would, as the seller's attorney for this project specifically, I would receive a letter from the buyer's attorney to start the attorney review process. That letter typically tries to clarify some points in the contract and just fine tune the contract that the sponsor has prepared. A few days of negotiations will go by, and then a final letter will be prepared between the two sides, and that's when attorney review is concluded. The seller's attorney also works with the buyer's attorney on clearing title if there are any title issues, and the seller's attorney prepares the deed and the other documents that are required to actually transfer ownership of the unit to the buyer. As Tina and Mark both said, in New York, you do all your negotiating before you sign. You typically do your inspections before you sign. In New Jersey, we've got this interesting model where we sign basically an offer contract and then do the negotiations and the inspections thereafter. Tina, have you been seeing any new requests from buyers due to COVID-19 in your attorney review negotiations?
Yes. So in terms of like extensions, so definitely, because we've seen lenders have been slowing down in specific like appraisals, sometimes are delayed, and also commitment letters are also being delayed. So our clients are requesting more time in terms of like, say, the inspection contingency, the mortgage contingency. So the mortgage contingency usually before COVID is like 30 to 45 days, but now I think we're seeing like even like 60 to 75 days request of extension. And also in terms of closing, there's also like a COVID-19 clause, which allows both parties to reasonably adjourn the closing date because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I've been seeing the same in the letters that I receive from buyers, and different sellers have different tolerance for how long of a delay they'll allow for, but everyone is trying to be as understanding as possible while keeping business as usual. How when I started as a real estate attorney 16 or so years ago, all of my attorney review meetings were in person. Over the past few years before COVID, those have really changed to phone and email. But I would say that during COVID-19, all communication is now being done via phone and email. And like Taryn said, you can get through your entire closing process without ever sitting down in the same room as your attorney. Are you finding the same thing, Tina?
Yes, even before COVID-19, it's very common that I don't see my clients until the closing date. So it's more like this during this era. So everything is done over the phone, over the email, and even I don't even see them at closing, because closings can be done remotely or virtually now as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes you probably never even meet your client, right? It's either just all virtual or over the phone. And
we meet them about 40 times because they come back and everyone wants to see the apartment. So we actually miss everybody. Right. We miss the people.
True. It's very true. So that's a good segue into the next piece and the most important piece of this morning's presentation. What does the closing actually look like during COVID? So we'll start with Taryn. What do you find is the biggest concern that people have as a part of their closing process right now?
We've made extreme efforts at One Park to really try to create some sense of normalcy through this process, whether it be bringing buyers through a virtual process and then overlaying that in-person tour and really going through the motions and keeping everything as quote unquote normal as we can during this time. But I think one of the things that is the biggest concern in my mind is that we don't get to sit there and really hand over a set of keys and shake someone's hand and congratulate them when they've made one of the biggest purchases of their life. So that, on an emotional level is one of the biggest things that I feel that myself and our entire sales team at One Park and DMG Investments really are missing right now, is to be able to congratulate a new home buyer in person on their purchase. But we've really done a lot to try and keep everything as quote unquote normal as we possibly can during this time.
Yeah, I think unfortunately right now some of the it's the experience that's lacking. Like our lobby has sweeping views of New York. It's 2-layered, all glass, and it's just absolutely amazing. And now people just may be more a little concerned, oh, is my mask on or my gloves on? But when we go back to normalcy, the experience will come back, and One Park will thrive as always.
Great. So, Tina, the word that we're using in our office all the time is virtual closing or mail closing. We always enjoyed having the buyers come to our office for their closings, get to meet them before the transition process of the condominium. And now we just sit at home and do a lot of emailing, right? So I'll just give a brief overview of what the closing process looks from the seller side, and then we'll get Tina's input on the buyer's end. So on the seller side, we're able to do everything by mail. We prepare the transfer documents and deliver them to our client for signature and notarization. And then we prepare an escrow letter that goes to the buyer's closing agent, instructing the buyer's closing agent to hold on to those documents and not release them until the closing has actually been approved by both parties. Once that escrow letter has been signed, the closing documents on the seller's end are sent to that closing agent. And then we work together with the buyer's closing agent to get proof of closing by mail. It may take a bit longer. If everyone was in the same room, you could probably conclude a closing in an hour. It may take 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes we're finding the actual funding occurs a day later, but it gets the job done. We're closing deals every day and cooperation between the buyer and the seller's attorney is key.
Right, agree. Yeah.
Tina will agree. I keep saying this and not to minimize the amazing work that doctors and nurses and other essential workers are doing, but no one's talking about the title companies and how the title companies really are frontline essential workers during this COVID time, because without them, I don't think you'd be able to get as many real estate deals closed. They're providing notary services and closing services, and they've really been wonderful. So it's also key to have a good title company.
Right. Yeah, the title companies that I've been working with, they're extremely accommodating in this day and age. So they either send out a closer, or if you don't want a closer, they just work with you through mailing, FedExing. So they are really the frontline essential workers. And also just to add what Gemma said earlier, so the whole process, yes, from the buyer's perspective, we can all accommodate that. And one very important piece of this is POA, it's power of attorney. So, and also I think both New York and New Jersey now, given the executive orders, virtual notarization can be done, which is that eliminate like a big obstacle of doing this virtually. So whenever we can, we ask our clients to give us the power of attorney so that they don't have to, step out of their house to sign any documents. And especially, there's no consensus among banks in terms of virtual closing. So some banks still actually require in-person closing. But if you give your attorney power of attorney, the POA, then your attorney can sign those loan docs on your behalf.
Tina, have you seen any banks with New Jersey closings allowing for electronic signatures?
I think Tara mentioned the U.S. Bank. Is that?
Yes, U.S. Bank, one of our preferred lenders at One Park, does virtual closings with electronic signatures.
Can you just explain a little, Taryn, what that actually looks like?
Everything goes through a lovely portal with US Bank. James Chu is one of our preferred lenders. And on our last episode, he kind of briefly touched on that. So there's documentation and there is a virtual notarization process for all the bank documents, but they have set up for US Bank. Essentially, they've been calling it a virtual closing room. And it's just the same thing like any other electronic signature platform, but it is their proprietary thing, and they've been doing virtual closings since last week.
That's great. So again, it just is amazing how people have adapted and how we truly can facilitate this entire closing process if you're using US Bank, especially without ever leaving your old home. Now would be the time for everyone to start submitting questions so that if anyone has any questions about the program. And I'd like to just kind of go along the panel as we wrap up and ask if anybody has any final words of wisdom with regard to home closings during COVID-19. We'll start with Mark.
Well, for me, I just want to say One Park is one of the most sought after buildings on the Gold Coast, and we look forward to having you view our homes and taking you guys to close.
And Taryn?
In my opinion, it's maintaining that everyone continues to wash their hands. Keep washing your hands, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we are so excited to serve you in any way that we can through One Park and help you along in your home buying process.
And Tina?
Yes, so from an attorney's perspective, I'd suggest that you work really closely with your attorney during the attorney review period to ensure that, provisions or terms that really protect you as a buyer are there during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Wonderful. So we are getting a couple of questions in. Tina, I'm going to ask you the first question. Approximately how long would you say it takes to close from the date of signing the contract?
I'd say normally for condos, I'd say sometime 30 to 45 days would suffice pre-COVID. But given the situation that we're in, I probably would say 60 days minimum. Given that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a delay with the commitment letter, with the delay with the appraisal, especially if you're financing. But if you're a cash buyer, then the time frame can be like significantly shortened.
Great. And Tina, one more question for you. Would you say there's any benefit to closing now instead of waiting until after COVID?
That's really case by case. So I've seen some transactions that both parties actually are eager to close, or sellers eager to close. Sellers are willing to give concessions to buyer to close early. From the buyer's perspective, it really depends on your individual situations. So there's no harm in closing right now if your financial situations are the same. And if the buildings actually allow move in, I've closed 3 deals this week. So clients are all moving in. So it really depends on your personal needs. I wouldn't say there's any disadvantage of closing right now.
Yeah, I would agree. My firm is closing 2 to 3 deals per day for One Park and other properties around the state. So
Right.
I would definitely say closings are continuing as normal. Thanks again, like I said, to great cooperation of buyer and seller attorney, title companies, lenders, and obviously always the brokers who really keep everything together for us, especially when none of us are in the same room. So the most important question that I'll ask, Taryn, if someone on today's webinar wants to get in touch with you or the team at One Park for a showing, what's the best way to do that?
The best way right now is to go to oneparkcondosnj.com. We have all of our virtual tours available there. You can also text 201-633-7600, which is our sales office, or you can call, and we're happy to work with you. There's a really great link on the One Park Condos NJ website that you can actually schedule an in-person tour. And if you want it to be a virtual tour where we FaceTime with you, one of the agents is going to reach out to you beforehand. So you can just say, hey, I'd prefer a FaceTime tour as opposed to an in-person tour. And we're here every step of the way. As you mentioned before, when you were talking about the whole closing process, we as brokers, we don't just show the apartment. We're kind of keeping the team together, and we're the coach on the sidelines that keeps the process going from the practice run all the way to the championship when you grab those keys at the very end.
It's a great visual. And you and Mark truly are a facilitator. So thank you for all that you do to get these deals closed.
Thank you for
as
all
well.
you guys do.
Yep.
Well, again, I would like to thank DMG and the One Park Condominium for hosting this great informative webinar today. Please be sure to check your email and sign up for their next episode, which I'm sure will be not as good as this one, but very good as well. And most importantly, please stay safe, stay healthy, and stay sane with you and your families during this COVID-19 era. Thank you all and have a wonderful day. Enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a great one.